January 1st, 1995, a laser sensor on the Dropner oil platform in the North Sea recorded a wave that shouldn't have existed. It crested at over 25 meters, taller than an 8-story building. It slammed into steel platforms and passing ships within minutes. None of them sank. Nobody reading that number yet knew it would force engineers to rethink what a wave could actually do to a ship, and why most ships survive it anyway. Because that same physics handles something far more ordinary too. 10-meter waves hit cargo ships constantly in routine storms. A hull built to survive 25 meters treats 10 as routine. Drop a block of steel in water and it sinks in seconds. Build a ship from that same steel. Add hundreds of thousands of tons and it crosses entire oceans without disappearing. This video answers 3 questions. What actually holds a steel ship above water? Why doesn't a wave that size snap the hull in half? And once it passes, is the ship really safe? The obvious answer: ships are just too big to sink. That's true. It's also wrong. Size alone explains nothing. A flat steel plate the size of a ship's deck would sink the moment it touched water, no matter how large you built it. Something else does the work. Start over 2,000 years back, with a principle discovered in a bathtub. Push a cup mouth down into water and feel it push back. That resistance is water trying to reclaim the space the cup occupies. Archimedes turned that feeling into a law. Any object submerged in liquid gets pushed up with a force equal to the weight of the liquid it displaces. For most of human history, that law didn't need proving. Ships were wood, and wood floats on its own. Then wood ran out. 16th century warships stripped entire forests for a single hull. Engineers looked at iron instead, and iron sinks. Everyone knew that from experience. In 1787, English industrialist John Wilkinson bet his colleagues that an iron barge wouldn't sink. They took the bet gladly. His hull was 21 meters long, about the length of a tennis court, flat-bottomed, and built from a material everyone trusted to sink. It launched into the River Severn and settled exactly where his calculations said it would. He won and earned a nickname: Iron Mad. 56 years later, the real test came. The SS Great Britain, a 98-meter iron liner nearly the length of a football pitch, launched in Bristol under crowds expecting it to sink with passengers aboard. It sailed calmly out to sea instead. Iron had won the argument, but nobody could explain why yet. Not really. Steel is roughly 8 times denser than water. That fact never changes, in a barge or in a battleship. The answer turned out to be shape, not material. Fold a flat steel sheet into a bowl and drop it in water, and it floats. Same metal, same weight. Opposite result. The bowl traps air, and that trapped air drags the object's average density down. Not the density of the steel alone, but the density of the whole hollow shape, air included, below the density of water, and it floats. Above it, it sinks. A ship is that bowl, scaled up thousands of times. Steel walls, wrapped around a cavity of air, cargo, and empty space, keeping the whole structure's average weight per cubic meter under seawaters. That explained calm water. It said nothing about a wall of water tall enough to swallow a 10-story building. Floating and staying upright turn out to be 2 separate problems. A hull can displace enough water to float and still tip over easily. Engineers track 3 points to answer that: where the ship's weight sits, where the water's supporting force acts, and a reference point called the metacenter, which decides whether a tilted ship rights itself or keeps going over. Tilt the ship, and the underwater shape shifts the point where buoyancy pushes back, pulling the hull upright again, but only if the compartments below stay sealed and the weight stays where it was calculated to be. A normal storm builds gradually, and a ship rises with the swell. A rogue wave is different, a single sudden strike, thousands of tons landing in a fraction of a second. Sometimes a wave lifts the ship's middle and leaves the bow and stern hanging in open air. Sometimes it's reversed, both ends resting on separate crests, the center hanging over a trough, like a bridge with its supports pulled out. For decades, engineers assumed the safest hull would be the stiffest one. Build it rigid and it wouldn't bend. That assumption was backwards. A fully rigid hull would take the full force of the impact directly into the steel and crack within seconds. The real fix is flexibility. Ships are built to bend. The way a steel ruler bends and springs back. A large container ship's bow and stern can rise and fall several meters relative to its center in a serious storm. Internal steel beams, running lengthwise and crosswise, work like ribs in a spine, spreading the load down the hull instead of letting it concentrate in one place. Shipbuilding steel is chosen specifically for that elasticity. It absorbs the punch through slight deformation instead of cracking outright. Flexible steel alone still isn't enough against a direct hit, so hull shape does the rest. Flared sides near the bow deflect a wave sideways instead of taking it head-on, scattering the force before it reaches the deck and superstructure. Even deflected, hundreds of tons of water can still land on deck in seconds. Freeing ports along the hull sides act like one-way valves, sealed shut against incoming waves, forced open from inside by trapped water once the wave passes. Ballast tanks, filled with seawater low in the hull, shift automatically to counter a lean. Retractable stabilizer fins fight the roll, though crews pull them in during the worst storms to protect the hydraulics. None of that explains why a 25-meter wall of water, larger than anything these systems were designed for, didn't capsize the ships near Draupner that day. The answer is mass and time. A fully loaded ship in that class can weigh over 150,000 tons, more steel than 20 Eiffel Towers. Moving that much mass takes sustained force, held over time. A rogue wave is the opposite, a short, localized strike that hits and passes in seconds. By the time that force could meaningfully tilt or dip a ship that heavy, the wave has already rolled across the deck and gone. A single blow loses precisely because it's single. Sinking a ship this way would take repeated waves, timed to the ship's own rhythm, not one sharp hit. That doesn't make ships unsinkable. It makes them differently vulnerable. The same 150,000 tons that shrugs off a single wave also takes miles to turn or stop. It can't dodge what it doesn't see coming in time. The Titanic carried 16 watertight compartments, engineered to stay afloat with any 4 flooded, a wide margin on paper. In 1912, an iceberg didn't test that margin directly. A glancing impact opened 6 smaller breaches at once, wider than any single collision the design accounted for. Water crept in slowly from 6 points at once, spilled over internal walls that stopped short of the top deck, and the stern rose to an angle the steel couldn't bear. The hull broke apart. Regulators responded by mandating watertight walls run the full height of a ship, deck to deck. In 1994, the ferry Estonia lost its bow visor in a storm, with waves barely 4 to 5 meters, far smaller than Draupner's. Water flooded the vehicle deck, sloshing with every tilt and making each tilt worse than the last. That's the same shift the Meta Center is supposed to correct, except a corrective tilt only works with sealed compartments and fixed weight, and neither one held that night. Within about 20 minutes, the ferry capsized. So here's the paradox. A ship can take a 25-meter freak wave and sail on. A ferry can capsize in a storm a fraction that size. Both are true, and they were never about the same thing. One is about a hull's shape and mass absorbing a sudden, brief force, physics working exactly as it was calculated to. The other is about balance, breaking down slowly, compartment by compartment, until nothing is left to pull the ship back upright. That's what actually holds a steel ship above the water. Not size, but a hollow shape displacing more water than it weighs. It's why a violent wave doesn't snap a well-built hull. Flexible steel and a deflecting scatter the force before it can concentrate. And it's why the danger never fully disappears once the wave passes. The real threat was never the wave itself, but whatever was already off balance below deck before it arrived. A ship doesn't survive the sea by being unsinkable. It survives one wave at a time.